All right, my apologies. I really don't know what's happening with the previous one. I think people were having issues with the sound, right? So what I was talking about is that the CV is a requirement when you are looking for a master's or a funded master's or a PhD program. In fact, even for the scholarships, it's a big part. All right, it's a big part. And as I said earlier, you don't have the power to change anything about your transcript, but you can actually change your CV or tailor it to suit the research that the prof is doing. And that is what we are talking about right now, okay? So having a tailored CV, that will help the prof to make a decision as to whether you are the right candidate to interview or not, okay? Again, the word is tailored CV. So I'm looking for a CV that aligns with the research that I do. I'm looking for a CV that shows that the person has built up some skill set that is really critical to the work I'm doing. All right, that's all. And if you have a first class, a strong second class upper, and you have a very good CV to match, I really don't see why you are not going to get funding for a master's or a PhD program. That's really the main, especially if you are in the STEM field. Yesterday, I explained that for those in economics and in political science, the social sciences and some of those programs, the main thing is that they allow people to apply. Again, the CV is important. Your transcript is important. Your research statement is important. And then they rank all the applicants. They select, let's say, the top 15% and give them the admission with full funding or full scholarship, right? But for programs like engineering, biology, chemistry, physics, some of those programs, you really have to find a prof before you apply. Else you can get the admission and you don't have the funding, okay? So our goal then is to be able to align ourselves with what the prof is doing to become the right candidate so that we get called for the interview, okay? And it's a standard practice for these programs. If you send me your CV, you add your transcript, I look at whatever, if I have funding and I'm hiring, I look at the CV, I look at the transcript, and then I call you for an interview if I like what I'm seeing, right? And that is because I want you to be able to do the research when you come so that you don't get stuck, all right? And that is why it's also important to present yourself very well on the CV so that you become the right candidate for the program, okay? So on the CV side of things, as I said, you have the header. The header has your name, your email, your LinkedIn profile if you have one. If you don't have one, it's very nice to create one. I'll talk about this some other time. And then your address and all of that. But nothing like what we see, nationality, religion. And I'm telling you, 2025, I still see CVs that has what? Nationality and birthdays, and all this kind of. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? In this day and age, who cares about your birthday or your nationality? So these are things mistakes that people make, and we want to always move. Nobody cares about that. Your name, your email address, your phone number, and then maybe your address. That's it. All right. Then we go to the first critical part, which is what? The summary of qualifications. As I said, the summary of qualifications should define you and your background. In this case, I'm looking at your field of study, your field of expertise. I should see that in not less than at least 5 bullet points, all right? And I'll give you an example. Somebody completed biology, and then they are sending their CVs around, and in terms of the summary of qualifications, it's actually a good sell for you, or it can actually push you out of the candidates. Why? I may not have time to go through all the CV. Whether it's a 1-page or 2-page, and I'll talk about whether it should be 1 page or 2 page or 3 pages or whatever it is, right? But the main thing is that I'm looking at the summary of qualifications, and if it is really something I'm interested, that's when I go on further to read whatever you have there, okay? So it's a way of trying to have a quick glance at the CV without really having read the CV, okay? And that's important, summary of qualifications. And that summary of qualifications, people put stuff like, I'm a fast learner, I'm a team player. Everybody's a fast learner, everybody's a team player. So, you saying it means show me something that actually demonstrates your skill set, that demonstrates your background. All right. And I'm talking about core technical skill set. This is not the section to be using plain languages, because if somebody is not from your field, when they pick the CV up in terms of, if again, please, this is when we are looking for academic positions, all right? It will be different if you're looking for some other stuff. But I'm looking for somebody that I don't have to start from scratch for them to learn the things that I'm doing before they can do my research. I don't have the time for that. And remember, I'm paying. So if I'm paying, I'm looking for somebody who can do it as soon as possible, in terms of as soon as they get here, they can actually do the right thing, all right, and start the research. I said it yesterday too, that for those in Canada and the US, the difference is one. For PhD programs, for example, if you're a PhD student in Canada, if you get here today, tomorrow you start the research. But in the US, they allow you to study for a year or two, write your candidacy, pass the candidacy before they start the research. That's the difference between the two schools, the two countries, sorry. And so please be mindful of the fact that if I'm looking for the right candidate, I spend a lot of time because I don't want you to come get stuck here when you come, all right? That is really important, okay? So first things first, you have your summary of your header with all your names and details. You have your summary of qualifications. Then you can talk about the next stage, which is what? Your education. So if you have a bachelor's, you write the school name, address, and then, title of your capstone or the project that you worked on. Why is that important? That can be a very good sell if it aligns with the work that the prof is doing. So I have somebody who sent me a message that they did a capstone on machine learning. I'm looking for somebody with expertise in machine learning. That really helps me to just go look at the other stuff that they've done to see if they are the right candidate, right? So some of these technical terms can actually be a good sell for you if it aligns with what the prof is doing, all right? Then we go to the next stage, which is what a lot of people make mistakes on that, which is work experience. No, I really don't care about your work experience. I want to see your research experience. Why? When you come for your master's program or your PhD program and it's funded, you are going to do research, okay? And the research is really the critical part. I want to see, has this person even done something like this before? Or do they have the prerequisite skills to do the research that I'm doing, all right? For those who are looking for PhD positions, that is even more critical. If I see a PhD student who has somebody who's looking for a PhD opportunity and they just have technical work experience, well, it depends on the project that I'm working on at the moment. If it is something that I need that technical knowledge, of course, that becomes a good sell. But if it's not, then, because they're going to learn the basic things again, you're going to go back and learn the technical things that we did in the master's, in the undergrad, which is really going to be applicable to the PhD program, all right? So you want to spend some time on the research experience and talk about the things you have done. And I use Ghana as an example. A lot of the people who send me their CVs to review, they say, oh, I don't have any research experience because in Ghana we don't do research, or in Nigeria we don't do research. And I'm like, no, we do, okay? We do. The fact that we don't call it research doesn't mean it's no research. You're doing something awesome. Your internship, your externships that you did, your capstone projects that you worked on, okay? Remember, when we say research, it can actually be you going to looking for information and then what? Creating a code or something like that. It can be me sending you to go do some experiment in the lab and all of that. So equipment that you know how to use, the technical things in terms of the formalities for even setting up the research and all of that, which I know we do in these universities, all right? So your capstone project can be a research project. Your externship or your internship or what we call attachments that you did can actually be a research experience depending on what project you worked on. All right. So these are important, that you draw out the projects and then bring out the research aspect of those projects that you worked on. Okay. I have somebody who worked at ECG and then they said, oh, at ECG, I was actually doing more project management, but then we were working on this project, which is a turbine. I'm like, awesome. All right. If they're working on a turbine, you were part of the team. Tell me what you did. That should be part of the research experience, okay? So the research experience doesn't have to be, I got a research position and I was a research scientist and so that is my research experience. No, it can be as simple as you working on a design project, okay? And then you went ahead to do some reading in terms of journal papers or some books finding more information, creating the prototype, printing the prototype, or doing something about it, that can be your research. All right. So everybody who has been through our educational system has to some extent, a research experience, which we really have to draw on. So first things first, your header. Second thing is what? Your summary of qualifications. Third thing is what? Education. The fourth thing is what? Research experience. Why? Research experience because we are looking at what? A master's or a PhD program. And we really don't care about the work experience, it's rather the research experience. So you can convert your work experience into a research experience if you worked on a specific project. Now, for those looking for PhD positions, this is very important. Publication. I will never hire a student unless you are from a direct undergrad to a PhD, which I've done in the past. I picked somebody, undergrad student to a PhD program, and then they did awesome, But if I'm looking at somebody who already did a master's, and I'm talking about the STEM fields, please. So those in biology, chemistry, physics, any form of engineering, computer science, all of that. If you already have a master's and you're looking for a PhD, one of the main things that will set you apart from all the other people is publication, journal publication. And this is really critical. I'm not going to hire anybody into my PhD program. And if you already have a master's and you don't have what? A journal paper. Forgive me, but it shows that you are not productive. That is how we interpret it over here. Okay? So you can actually find a way of publishing that work that you have. If you are not publishing it, find a way of what? Working on it now, which you can actually say that is under preparation. If you are working on it, that's fine. But there is no way that I'm going to pick a PhD student and then they did their master's already where they don't have a single publication, because then I'm stuck. Now, why is that important to the prof? I go for the grant, I look for people to do the work. Now, the only way I demonstrate that the work has been done is through my journal publications. So I want somebody who is coming to do the research and publish a journal paper. And I keep on telling all my graduate students that, look, if you're not publishing over here, you're already in trouble, right? You're already in trouble because that's the only way you distinguish yourself from the others, and then also talk to the scientific community about the work you did, all right? And so if you are not publishing your work, then you have to really find a way of publishing. Okay. Now, for undergrad to masters, even if you don't have a publication, that's fine. Because, for somebody who is just finished undergrad or has finished undergrad and don't have a master's degree, I don't expect that they have a journal publication. But if you do, that's awesome. Okay. I will quickly interview somebody who has finished the undergrad, they have a journal publication or even published or did some conference presentation and can show me or come talk to me about it. All right. Because I'll call you for an interview, and in the interview, I'll ask you to tell me what you did in this project, all right? And a lot of the prof, when they like your CV, the next stage is to call you for an interview. And a lot of the questions can be about what are your aspirations, what are some of the things that you did in the past, and all of that, okay? So publication becomes one of the best ways of demonstrating your skill set to the prof, okay? From there, you can talk about technical skills, your work or your teaching experience, the awards and scholarships that you got, leadership and, extra activities and all these kind of things. You can do that. But again, for me, the decision is based on only these three things in terms of what's your summary of qualifications, what's your research experience, and then your level of publication. That's all I base my stuff on. And I know a lot of my colleagues also do that because it's the only way you demonstrate that you have some research experience and then you know what you are doing. Okay? So please, if you want to apply, yes, you can. Make sure you send the email to the prof. The email should have your CV attached and your transcript attached. Don't send a CV without your transcript. Don't send a transcript without your CV. You need both, because everybody who is sending has a first class. So you having a first class or a strong second class or whatever it is means nothing. All right. So make sure you add your CV to your transcript. In that case, you stand a chance of getting called for the interview. And in terms of improving your CV, always make sure that the CV is tailored to the work that the prof is doing. Okay? If you don't tailor your CV to the work that the prof is doing, there's no way you are the director. It's just like when somebody advertises that they're looking for somebody to do a specific work, all right? For job advertisement, your CV should be the direct candidate for the advertised job. Else, why am I going to call you for an interview, right? So that is something that you have to pay attention to. Making sure that the CV aligns with the work that the prof is doing before you send it to that prof. I said it before, somebody sends me a CV and then they tell me that, hey, I'm looking for a position in aircraft landing gears, a research on aircraft landing gears. I'm not even going to respond to the email, because you saw my profile, you realize that I don't do any research on aircraft landing gears. And so why will you send me a CV about aircraft landing gears? Definitely it shows that this person doesn't even know how to do their basic research, right? How are you going to be in the group? Okay, so please, it's very simple as having a good CV and then your transcript, and then sending the prof an email inquiring if they have an open position. And if they like what they see, they call you for an interview. All right, that's all for me. I'll talk about the interview sometime, and I'll give you some more tips on the CV. And please don't forget to ask any questions you have about this whole journey. All right, I'll be more than happy to support you on this. And please, I don't charge anybody any money for anything too. All right. Thank you. Thanks. Take care. Bye.